Good morning. Welcome to the California Department of Justice pre-application webinar for the Tobacco Grant Program, fiscal year 2026-27. My name is Jennifer Ivy Johnson, and I am the manager of the Grant Services Branch. As we get started, we have a few housekeeping items. Please note your cameras, microphones, and chat have been disabled during the presentation to avoid any intentional distractions or background noises. Closed captioning for this webinar is available. If you'd like to turn it on, find the captions icon at the bottom of your Zoom application and select Turn On. To change what you are seeing on the screen, please click on the View icon in the upper right corner of your screen, and you can also adjust the vertical sliders in the same section. Helpful links to the RFP materials will be shared in the chat throughout the presentation, and you can access the same documents using the Resources button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can also visit our website to access the same information. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted onto our YouTube channel in a few weeks, and an email will be sent to all registrants when it's available to view. While we do anticipate the content will address many of your questions, we will activate the Q&A feature for us to respond to your questions towards the end of our presentation. Once enabled, you will find the Q&A feature in the control panel at the bottom of the Zoom window. Simply type in your question and we'll give the live response, or we will address it during the Q&A. Now for some brief introductions. Joining me today to share some of the details about the grant are Karen Snyder, Tobacco Grant Awarding Specialist, Alice Su, Deputy Attorney General within our Tobacco Unit, and Omar Benamor, Tobacco Grant Program Officer. Today's presentation will cover information about the Tobacco Grant Program, funding details such as eligibility and priority activities, key dates and deadlines, evaluation criteria. Strategy considerations will be shared to assist with your project planning, and we'll walk through the proposal and application process. So that we stay connected, we'll provide our contact information, and at the end of our presentation, we'll open a Q&A period to address program and application related questions. I'll now turn things over to Karen. She's going to provide more information about the program itself. Karen?
Thank you, Jennifer. The Tobacco Grant Program was established in 2017 from the voter-approved Proposition 56 and works to counter these influences and protect our youth. DOJ funding supports local enforcement agencies to hold retailers and others accountable for selling or marketing tobacco products to our youth. This could be enforced through state law or local ordinances, which could be more impactful. Unfortunately, companies continue to aggressively target youth with flavored tobacco products loaded with nicotine that harm developing brains, leading to addiction and many adverse health consequences. In fact, this could be a reason you are here today, to learn more about how you can reduce the number of retailers contributing to the use of tobacco in your area by being awarded these funds. Now that we have the basic frame, let's dive into who is eligible for these funds. Eligible agencies are those local public agencies in California with authority to enforce tobacco-related state laws or local ordinances related to the illegal sales and marketing of tobacco products to minors and youth. We encourage applications from both new agencies and current or past grant recipients. We also strongly encourage prosecutorial offices to apply, as their role is critical in supporting enforcement efforts and advancing cases through the legal process. Now let's take a closer look at the program priorities. For this grant term, here are the priority activities for funding, as well as activities that are not considered for funding under this grant program. Priority activities include retail inspections, retailer education activities, and retail enforcement operations. It also includes prosecution activities aimed at reducing illegal sales to minors. For officer education, priority activities include training related to tobacco laws, enforcement techniques, and emerging trends. This ensures officers are equipped with the knowledge and tools needed to carry out grant-funded activities. These efforts are intended to increase retailer accountability and support consistent enforcement at the local level. On the other hand, certain activities are not considered for funding. These typically include efforts that fall outside the scope of retailer enforcement or officer training, or activities that are not clearly aligned with the program's goals and objectives. Mere possession or use of tobacco, youth education, campaigns, funding of school resource officers, vape detectors, or community patrols is not the focus of the DOJ tobacco grant. There are other grants available to address these issues. Our grant is enforcement focused as required by Proposition 56 and aligned with the Attorney General's responsibilities to safeguard Californians from harm and promote community safety. As you develop your proposal, we encourage you to focus on activities that directly support enforcement outcomes and align with these priority areas. This year, the Department of Justice will award approximately $28.5 million in funding through our competitive reimbursement grant program supported by state tobacco tax revenue. Award amounts will vary based on the scope of each proposal, and funding is provided on a reimbursement basis with payments issued quarterly. The grant period will run from November 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2030, with project periods of either 24 or 36 months. Grant activities may start as early as November 2026, with a later start option extending into July 2027. For agencies that are new to the tobacco grant program, you may want to consider building in a little additional lead time to prepare your application, coordinate internally, and ensure you have the appropriate resources to support the project. Now, with that in mind, let's look at how funding can be used, including some common and allowable costs. Some basic allowable costs include personnel costs to support staff time and benefits. This could include time spent planning and conducting enforcement, investigations, or prosecution-related activities. Some operating costs to consider could be equipment, within reason, for undercover operations, retailer education materials, contracted services, mileage or fuel, and rental cars needed to support tobacco grant work. Administrative costs are also allowable and limited to 5% of personnel and operating costs. This cost will be automatically calculated and included in your budget. Omar will discuss the administrative cost budget in more detail in his section later in the webinar. So here we have queued up a few of the common unallowable costs, such as purchases of vehicles, facility costs, drones, or gift cards. Please review Appendix B of the RFP for a more expansive list. When considering costs, remember the focus is on retailer enforcement. Please don't list youth possession enforcement or anti-vaping workshops under other activities. As you prepare your application, please ensure the proposed costs align with program guidelines and are tied to allowable activities. With that in mind, let's review the reporting requirements so you know what to expect throughout the program. As part of participating in the program, there are two primary reporting requirements to be aware of. The quarterly progress reports capture the grant activities your agency performed, along with any accomplishments and barriers your agency encountered. These reports provide a high-level view of your work for the reporting period. The Local Enforcement Data Report captures detailed data on retail enforcement operations, including retailer-level information. It also tracks trends with compliance and violations across your jurisdiction. Together, these reports provide a more complete picture of program activity and overall impact. The level of detail in your reporting will vary depending on the types and volumes of activities conducted. The DOJ provides reporting guidance during grantee onboarding, including expectations, timelines, and submission requirements. Additional details are also available in the grantee handbook. And if you were wondering, yes, your time attending the training course is definitely an allowable cost. Now that we have covered the program and reporting expectations, let's review the key dates and deadlines for the application process. Let's start with the application date. All proposals must be submitted online by June 19th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Time. The review period will take place over the following months, with funding decisions anticipated in October. The earliest expected start date for the awarded projects is November 2026. Please plan ahead to ensure timely submission, as late submissions will not be accepted. We will now review the evaluation criteria so you understand what the Merits Review Committee will be looking for. The Merits Review Committee is a cross-divisional panel that reviews the grant proposals and evaluates them using standardized criteria across 5 areas. First is the problem statement, which carries the greatest weight at 35%. This should clearly demonstrate a compelling need for funding. Second is the proposed project at 25%, which focuses on your plan of activities. This is where you outline how your approach directly responds to the identified need. The third area is personnel at 10%, which looks at whether the appropriate staff and partners are in place or will be in place to successfully carry out the work. The fourth area is budget at 10%, which should be reasonable, necessary, and clearly aligned with the proposed activities. And finally, capacity at 20%, which reflects your agency's readiness to implement the project and manage the grant effectively. Proposals that are clear, well-aligned across these areas, and are directly connected to the identified need tend to be the most competitive. Building on the evaluation criteria, I will turn it over to Alice Sue to walk through some program strategies and highlight what strong approaches can look like in practice.
Thanks, Karen. So in this section, what I'm going to be doing is sharing some things you'll need to consider before you apply. Since we've been doing this for a while and seen so many different situations, we're going to use this experience to offer up some strategies for success. First, if you're a law enforcement agency or code enforcement type agency, here's some things that you're going to consider before applying. First, what laws are you going to enforce? Is it going to be a tobacco retail licensing scheme or local ordinance? Or is it going to be the state law? And do you know what the laws affecting tobacco are? Next, who's going to be doing the enforcement and for what? Is it going to be code enforcement doing the initial inspection with contact and referral to peace officers if criminal offenses are found? Or is law enforcement going to be doing the enforcement from beginning to end? Finally, which prosecuting agencies will your cases be filed with? Is it going to be the city attorney, county counsel, or DA's office? And does that prosecuting agency know that these cases are going to be filed with them? Is there a designated prosecutor that has the knowledge to deal with these cases? And if the prosecuting agency isn't applying for a grant themselves, consider adding in a line item for attorney time or a contract for that attorney time to guarantee that your cases are going to be looked at. There's going to be several types of operations that you can conduct at the retail level. And again, this isn't an exhaustive list, so feel free to find other situations and operations to deal with. If you have trouble finding under 21-year-old decoys for shoulder tap and minor decoy operations, utilization of over 21-year-olds can be done for flavor ban and Lucy operations. Online delivery buys that are prohibited in your area or using USPS could also be considered. Under the state law enforcement has that inspection authority as well. Consider local ordinances that would allow code enforcement or other enforcing agencies to have that inspection authority rather than utilize only peace officers. Again, thinking outside the box as to what works for your agency and your jurisdiction will be a key consideration. Now let's move ahead to talk about prosecuting agencies. If you're a prosecuting agency, and hopefully enforcement agencies in your area are going to have their own grant. If not, and enforcement agencies are not going to be applying for the grant themselves, consider having line item contracts with enforcement agencies or using your own investigators from your office. The main consideration here will be knowing, again, the laws that affect tobacco in California and your locality. Establish enforcement procedures so that your enforcing agencies know how to run their operations within the law. And if you have a designated person or team in your office that can run point for the cases coming out of this grant, it'll guarantee that problematic areas in your jurisdiction will get the attention they need. Also, if your court isn't used to getting these types of cases, start a dialogue with the court about these specific cases, because it can't hurt, especially if these cases end up in admin hearings or traffic court. Many of these hearing officers have never dealt with tobacco cases. Know that templates exist for both civil and criminal cases that have already received favorable outcomes, so don't reinvent the wheel, because assistance is here if you need it. There's also online diversion classes that have already been established, and they're available for you to review so that you can have a program maybe for first-time offenders for diversion cases. Next, let's talk about potential roles for public health agencies. Now, public health agencies are in a unique position because they don't historically have enforcement authority unless it's vested in their environmental health sections. Even then, it's a different type of enforcement than is generally contemplated in doing tobacco enforcement. If your public health agency has never done tobacco enforcement or any type of enforcement at all, please consider what authority your agency may have, if any. And if you don't have enforcement authority, consider the impact you can have within this enforcement grant. Is it going to be hand in hand with an enforcement agency for safety and citation purposes? Is it going to be applying for a grant with contracts to enforcement agencies who are not going to apply for the grant themselves? And is the prosecuting agency on board with public health committing enforcement action and understand their authority to do so? There's going to be a lot of considerations to address, but the critical one is going to be tied to the potential lack of historic enforcement authority, and that's your safety. Please have policies and procedures in place and know what you're getting yourselves into prior to committing to this action. Now, that was a lot of information and a lot to consider. So let's tie these threads together and note these main items. That we understand every agency and jurisdiction is different, so apply for the grant that works for you. There is no requirement for statewide uniformity, and we don't want to dictate a one-size-fits-all mentality, because flexibility and fluidity to adapt is what makes this effective. There's a lot of public agencies within each jurisdiction, so please share the burden. Get these other agencies to apply so that you can commit to jurisdictional task force mentalities. Everyone can own their own piece of the pie and leverage each other's work without duplicating efforts. Now, Omar is going to be talking about getting commitment letters from partnering and/or contracting agencies, but the ultimate commitment is going to be that the other agency applies for their own grant and is fully on the hook for the work. Let me leave you with this thought. Please consider who's going to be working the grant and get their input on the substance of your grant application. As amazing as grant writers may be, agencies have been left holding the bag when proper input hasn't been considered and are then left funded, but with unattainable goals and objectives. And now Omar is going to walk you through the application process.
Thank you, Alice. This section of the webinar will focus on the more important or challenging aspects of the proposal to clarify potential trouble areas and ensure a stronger submission. The proposal consists of 4 primary components: an online application, budget detail, letters of commitment, and letters of community support. For detailed guidance, please check out the Request for Proposals document and the Grantee Handbook, which have been dropped into the chat. Let's look at the online application. As we highlight aspects of the application form, please note that a comprehensive application guide can be found in Appendix E of the RFP, which can help support preparations outside of the system. This screenshot shows the table of contents and section navigator. We strongly recommend that sections be completed in sequential order for a smoother application process. All right, let's look at the first section, the agency profile. This section requires basic details such as agency name, type, and county. Any section or field marked with an asterisk is required for submission. Please be aware that all applicants must be public agencies with the ability to enforce tobacco laws and ordinances applicable to retail establishments. Moving on to the project summary. Here you'll enter the funding request, duration, anticipated start date, and a summary. The duration is based upon 24 or 36 months, and the start date can begin between November 1st, 2026 and July 1st, 2027. If any of these details are adjusted later in the application process, please return to this section and revise and align the information. Also, for any open-ended fields, there will be a character limitation which is provided below the text box. Moving on to partnering agencies that might be helping your team. In this section, you will list all agencies or contractors that will perform a portion of the proposed activities. For each partnering agency, a signed letter of commitment is required to be uploaded, and a template for this is available in Appendix C of the RFP document. Please be sure to secure these commitment letters as soon as possible. Now let's talk about the problem statement. This section defines the community to be served and the tobacco enforcement challenges it faces. The data for this section can be sourced from the California Tobacco Health Assessment Tool, which is linked alongside each item. If your project covers multiple jurisdictions, please ensure data is included for all relevant areas. This leads us to the narrative. A problem statement narrative is required to provide further insights into the local tobacco use rates and patterns among youths, as well as other demographic factors contributing to the issue in your area. Applicants are encouraged to consider local variations and factors that may contribute to the problem. Links to helpful resources for this section, such as those shown here, can be found in the Proposal Instructions section of the RFP. Okay, goals and objectives are up next. Your agency will select the proposed grant-funded activities here. As an example, this slide shows the follow-up prompt that appears when retailer inspections is selected. Please refer to the application guide in the RFP for details of specific questions and prompts within each of these activity areas. Moving on to the budget. The project budget section auto-fills the amount, start date, and duration from the project summary section. Next, upload your budget detail, which is provided in Excel format. Some tips to consider when preparing your budget detail. All costs must be reasonable and necessary. Expenses with an adequate justification may be removed or reduced in funding. Also, the total amount and duration must align with the project summary section. Before we show the budget detail on the next slide, please note that this is for illustrative purposes only. Section A of the budget detail covers salaries, overtime, and benefits for internal personnel. Given a selected grant start date of November 1st, 2026, with a 36-month duration, this sample budget has been allocated across fiscal years 2026, 2027, and 2028. It is very important to provide detailed computations for each item to substantiate the proposed budget. Moving on to Section B. Section B outlines operating expenses and equipment and is divided into 3 categories: equipment, other expenses, and travel expenses and registration fees. Please list equipment with a per unit cost of $5,000 or more in the first category, Any other expenses that are less than $5,000 per unit and contractors are reported in the second category. Please note that equipment must be purchased within the first year of the project to maximize its utility during the grant term. The third category covers all travel-related costs, including mileage, fuel, lodging, and training registration fees. All travel expenses must comply with the state of California's travel rates, rules, and regulations, and a link to this is provided in the instructions tab of the budget detail workbook. This leads us to the last section, administrative costs. In Section C, 5% of the total direct project costs from Sections A and B will be automatically allocated to administrative costs. These indirect costs support the overall operation of the project, but cannot be easily attributed to a single cost category. At the bottom of the budget detail, a summary shows the total amounts requested by section and fiscal year. After creating my budget detail, the total amounted to $435,643, which is much higher than what I originally requested at the start of the application. So I would need to go back to the project summary section to revise the original request amount of $150,000. Moving on to the agency capacity. Here, you'll let us know how well equipped you are to manage this grant, execute activities, and plan for continuity like staff transitions and possible contingencies, such as a partnering agency that can no longer fulfill their commitment. For prior awardees, we request additional information such as a comparison of this project to other awards and successes and challenges you've experienced. All right, we are ready to review our work. This is the last section of the application where you can review everything. At the bottom of this page, you'll have the option to download the application in PDF format. We encourage applicants to save a copy for their records and share it for internal approvals. And now we are ready to submit this proposal. After the status on all sections display either finished or complete, select Submit at the bottom of the page. Upon submission, a PDF copy of the finalized proposal will be emailed to the contacts provided. That concludes my section. Jennifer will now take over to share your next steps.
Thank you, Omar, Karen, and Alice. For our attendees, we hope you found today's application walkthrough helpful. As you move forward, the most important next step is to remember the application deadline. All proposals must be submitted by June 19th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. We strongly encourage you to allow sufficient time to complete and review your application, as late submissions will not be accepted. Thank you all for your questions today and your participation. As a reminder, this webinar we posted on our YouTube channel with a link emailed to you when it becomes available in a few weeks. Also, please keep the application deadline of June 19th in mind. You can continue to access the webinar materials in the resource section at the bottom of your screen while in today's session. But if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us at the Tobacco Grant RFP email address, which is in the chat. And at the close of the webinar, a short survey will be shared in the chat to help us improve our future sessions. It only takes a minute or two, and we really greatly appreciate your feedback. Thank you again for attending, and we look forward to reviewing your applications.